a poor widow searching for her missing daughter. But the last place she thought to look was beneath the altar of her own pastor's church. The rain had not stopped for 2 days in Amarachi village. It fell in heavy, angry drops, beating against the rusted zinc roofs, drumming like impatient hands. Inside the Holy Fire Revival Ministry, Pastor Ezekiel knelt at the altar, his lips moving in prayer. His wife, Mama Grace, stood a few feet behind him, her eyes darting to the dark stain on the floor, a stain no one but they knew the truth about. 3 weeks earlier, a girl named Amarachi had gone missing. She was only 15, with bright eyes and a laugh that carried through the dusty streets. She lived with her widowed mother, Mama Ngozi, who sold akara by the roadside. Amarachi had dreams of becoming a teacher, but her mother barely made enough to feed them. That Sunday, Pastor Ezekiel had called for special night prayers. He told the congregation the Lord had revealed there was a spiritual attack in the village. Amarachi, eager for blessings, had attended. That was the last time anyone saw her. The church was the pride of Amarachi, white walls, blue glass windows, and an altar that smelled of incense and fresh polish. Nobody would suspect that beneath those white tiles lay a secret grave. A grave that held Amarachi. Her disappearance shook the village. People whispered about kidnappers, evil forests, and river spirits. But no one dared suspect Pastor Ezekiel. After all, he was the man of God. Mama Grace played her role well. She visited Mama Ngozi with soup and comforting words, even joining in prayer for Amarachi's return. But every night, after the church lights went out, she and her husband would stand at the altar, whispering over the buried body, feeding it with strange incantations. Amarachi's spirit, they believed, would bring them power miracles that would fill the pews and the offering baskets. Yet something strange began to happen. Sometimes during evening service, the floor near the altar would feel cold. Members sitting in the front row swore they heard soft knocks coming from under the tiles. Once, a little boy screamed, saying he saw a girl's face in the floor crying. Pastor Ezekiel dismissed it as demonic distractions. But Amarachi's mother was not ready to give up. She began having dreams where her daughter stood under a bright moon, her hands tied, her mouth unable to speak, pointing toward the church. One night, Mama Ngozi decided to go to the church alone. It was after midnight, the rain was pouring, and the wind howled through the palm trees. She carried a lantern, its weak flame flickering in the darkness. The church doors were locked, but as she pressed her ear to the wood, she heard a faint tapping sound from inside, like knuckles hitting tile. Her heart pounded. She turned to leave, but then a voice whispered, soft, trembling, and unmistakable. "Mama, I'm here." Mama Ngozi froze. Before she could knock, a shadow moved inside the church. Someone was there. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open. Standing there in the dim light was Mama Grace. Her eyes were cold, and in her hand was a blood-stained shovel. Mama Ngozi's hands trembled as she stared at the blood-stained shovel. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the church roof, drowning out the sound of her heartbeat. but not enough to muffle the cold smile curling at the edge of Mama Grace's lips. Why? Why do you have that? Mama Ngozi's voice shook. Her lantern flickered, casting long shadows that danced on the altar steps. Mama Grace stepped forward, her wrapper rustling against the tiled floor. You shouldn't be here, Ngozi, she said softly. Go home before the devil uses you. But Mama Ngozi didn't move. Her eyes darted toward the altar. Where is my child? She demanded, her voice rising. God showed me. She's here, under this floor. The words hung heavy in the air. For the first time, Mama Grace's smile disappeared. Her pupils narrowed, her jaw clenched. From the darkness at the far end of the church, slow footsteps echoed. Pastor Ezekiel emerged, wearing a white prayer robe, his face half hidden in the lantern's glow. His hands were clasped as if in prayer, but there was something in his eyes, something sharp, calculating. Mama Ngozi, he said calmly, you are in the house of God. Accusing a servant of God is a dangerous thing. She took a step back. Where is my daughter? She cried, her voice breaking. Tell me before I tear this altar apart with my bare hands. The pastor's expression didn't change, but Mama Grace quietly moved behind Mama Ngozi, blocking the door. You've seen too much, Pastor Ezekiel said finally. And when the Lord shows someone too much, he calls them home. Mama Ngozi's breath caught. What? What are you saying? The pastor reached into his robe and pulled out something wrapped in black cloth. When he unrolled it, the dim light caught the glint of a rusted machete, its edge still wet from the rain. Or something else. Mama Ngozi's knees weakened. She turned toward the door, but Mama Grace's grip on her arm was like iron. Let me go, she screamed, kicking, clawing, but the shovel came up fast, its cold metal pressing against her throat. You want the truth? Mama Grace hissed. You will join her. You will lie beneath this altar and sing to your daughter in the dark. The storm outside roared louder. Lightning flashed through the stained glass windows, and for the briefest moment, Mama Ngozi thought she saw her daughter's face again on the floor, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Pastor Ezekiel raised the machete. Pray your last prayer, he said. But just as the blade descended, a deafening bang echoed through the church doors. Someone was outside, pounding furiously. Open this door in the name of the law, a deep voice shouted. Mama Grace's eyes widened in panic. Pastor Ezekiel froze, machete still in hand. The pounding grew louder. Whoever was outside wasn't going away. And for the first time, fear entered the pastor's eyes. The pounding on the church door stopped suddenly. The silence that followed was heavier than the storm outside. Mama Ngozi's chest rose and fell rapidly. Her eyes darted between Pastor Ezekiel and Mama Grace, both frozen in place. She thought maybe, just maybe, whoever was outside had left. Then came the sound. Slow, dragging footsteps splashing through the rain, getting closer, until they stopped right outside the door. A low, chilling laugh slipped through the wood. Mama Grace's face lit up with relief. She hurried to unlatch the door. When it swung open, a tall man stepped inside, shaking the rain off his black leather coat. His skin was the color of midnight, his eyes narrow, and a jagged scar cut across his cheek like lightning frozen on flesh. In his right hand, he carried a sack that dripped red onto the floor. "Chike," Pastor Ezekiel said, his voice low but warm. "You came just in time.